Good evening, everyone. I'm getting ready to share my screen of upcoming virtual programs. So uh, you may hear my voice and see upcoming programs. Let's see. We will be starting in about 7 minutes. We got some time. So in the meantime, I hope everyone is enjoying this wonderful weather. Okay, chat there. There we go. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. There we go.
See it, Maddie?
Okay. Let's start at the beginning. Tinted Tales, Coloring the Silver Screen. If you've attended one of Dr. Annette Bohannick's programs about old Hollywood, and this is a new one we have coming up next week. I believe it's on Tuesday, and I will be facilitating that one. I'm looking forward to it. She always does a great show. Exploring Western Ireland, an armchair traveler, part of our armchair traveler series by Jean Flynn. Very accomplished traveler, and he will be doing a program on Western Ireland. Okay, this program is in person at all of these programs you see on the screen are in person, except for the one on October 16th. And that one is being held in person at our Redbridge branch, but you can also register for it online. So that program is a hybrid. So they will be basically streaming the program from the Redbridge branch, and I hope you can make it. This one's fun. Another film historian, excuse me, Frank Mendoza, who does newer Hollywood programs closer to the day before Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween season Scream Queen. And that one sounds like a lot of fun too. Oh, excuse me. Okay, this is another program from, excuse me, another program from Jean Flynn, another armchair travel series, a visit to Normandy, D-Day beaches, and Brittany. And that one also looks very interesting. And okay, if you are an aspiring artist and you have not seen one of Sarah Poff's programs, you are missing something. She does a step-by-step program virtually. So, and this one is the only one that will be on our Facebook page. So when you register for the program, you will, get a link to our Facebook page, and there will be in the program description, if you do want to paint along, you will have a list of ingredients, it's not ingredients, a list of supplies that you need for the program ahead of time if you want to paint along. So Love It Sunset, I think that's our last, that's my last slide. So okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's go back and we'll just take a look at the slides. I'll continue to chat. Like I said, I hope everyone enjoyed this beautiful day. There we go. And I assume everyone is looking forward to seeing the Snakes of Missouri. I'm looking forward to it myself. I did not grow up loving snakes, but I've learned to love them. In fact, I grew up running away from snakes. Okay. Looking forward to seeing our audience tonight. There we go. Okay. And again, for those of you just joining us, you're looking at a slideshow of upcoming virtual programs. Dr. Annette Bohannik's Tinted Tales Coloring the Silver Screen. Dr. Bohannik is a film historian who focuses on old Hollywood. Our resident armchair traveler is Gene Flynn, and he's doing a couple programs coming up with us. The soonest one is Exploring Western Ireland, and he does such a fun program. This Medicare educational seminar is mostly in person. All these branches are hosting this program, but the October 16th program at 2 p.m. will be done. It will be presented at the Redbridge branch, but we are also streaming it. So you can, if you can't make it to one of these branches, you'll be able to watch it virtually on October 16th about changes in Medicare, upcoming changes in Medicare. Okay, Frank Mendoza, another film buff. He focuses more on more recent Hollywood, and although I guess Halloween is not recent Hollywood, but to me it seems recent. It was the first horror movie I ever saw, and yeah, okay. But that one will be coming up the night before Halloween, so you have a night to watch it before you go out and trick or treat. Okay, another program by Gene Flynn, A Visit to Normandy, D-Day Beaches, and Brittany. So that one will be another Gene Flynn program. And for those of you who like to paint, the Love at Sunset painting, will be on our Facebook page, and you will be able to paint along if you like. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it is almost time for us to start. Let's see. There you go. Okay, we're getting a crowd. Let's see. And I will have some announcements before we get started. So let me get my cheat sheet up here. Okay, yeah, it's 6:30, so we will go ahead. Let's see, we got a few there. Okay. First off, I want to introduce myself if you didn't hear it during the pre-program. My name is Cheryl Pemberton. I'm with the Mid-Continent Public Library. I'm glad you could join us tonight. I do want to ask if you could please keep your mic muted throughout the program. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the program. Also, I will include a link to a survey, and that survey will be in the chat at the beginning of the program and at the end of the program. And for those of you, we will be sending out a handout. It will go out towards the end of the program, and there will be a recording posted on our YouTube channel, the MCPL YouTube channel, but it probably won't be up until Monday. So as soon as I get that link, I will I will be sure and send that out to you all. Okay. Okay. I want to take a moment to introduce you. We have a question. Let's see. Let's see. Well, let me go ahead. I have a question from Brandy. Brandy, do you have a question? Okay. I'm not hearing you, so I'm going to go ahead and lower. Let's see. We're going to save our questions till the end of the program. Okay, Brandy? Let's see. All right, I'm sorry. I want to take a moment to introduce you to Rachel Mandy, who is with the Missouri Department of Conservation, another snake lover, and I want to welcome you tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my PowerPoint here. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. I do like talk with my hands a lot and it's a little distracting. So I'm actually going to mute my video because it helps me out. So you will not see me, but you will see the PowerPoint. So this is Snakes of Missouri. My name is Rachel Mandy. We'll go on to the next slide and then I'll shut off my video. I'm a naturalist at the Nita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, which is in Kansas City, Missouri. Please, 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 by all means, utilize that chat feature. I tend to get kind of distracted by the chat feature, so if I see something pop up, I may answer it in the middle of the program. But please, if you have any questions throughout today's program, utilize that chat feature. And then like Cheryl said, there will be a little bit of a handout and a follow-up email. So a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you today, especially towards the end, we'll have some like resources for you if you're interested in learning more. And so look out for that. It has a lot of links on it with great information. So without further ado, a little bit of an agenda for you. We're going to talk about what even are snakes? What are reptiles? Where did they come from? What makes a snake? Impacts on conservation with snakes, snakes of the world, and then snakes of Missouri. So every photo that you see on the side here is another photo of, or it is a photo of a Missouri snake. All of them, except for one, are all native Missouri snakes. So you'll see a lot of really cool ones throughout today's program, like this mud snake. So snakes, this is going to be a lot of like terminology here for a little bit. They're in the order Squamata, which is just how we categorize all of our living organisms. It's Latin. Squamatus means scaly, as we'll find out shortly. Our snakes are covered in scales. And Squamata includes both snakes and lizards. Now, our suborder, so just a level below that, is serpentines. Serpens means snake. It's also Latin, and that is just snakes. So we exclude our lizards for the suborder to just snakes. And they are, of course, recognizable by their lack of limbs, an elongated body, and tail. Snakes are a type of reptile. So what makes a reptile a reptile? Well, reptiles are a vertebrate. They're one of 5 animal groups that have a backbone, just like we do. The other 4 are fish, amphibians, mammals, and birds. They are cold-blooded, so that means they do not generate their own body heat like we do. Instead, they rely on the environment around them, whether that's air temperature, water temperature, or the sun to help heat them up and warm them up for their activities in the day. So you'll often see reptiles basking, especially turtles, on logs in the sun, but snakes do that too. They'll bask on rocks, or they'll lay under a rock that has been warmed up to try to regulate their body temperature a little bit. Every reptile has scaly skin, and they have internally fertilized shelled eggs. So that means that they lay their eggs, and those eggs are fertilized when they lay those eggs. And most eggs are laid inland. And I should clarify that most reptiles lay eggs, and we will get into that a little bit later because not every reptile lays eggs, but most do. And then most reptiles have nails or claws on the end of their digits. Snakes are the exception for that. So going back a little bit, the beginning, this picture is a phylogenetic tree of vertebrates. So it kind of shows you the evolution of vertebrates and how everybody's kind of related to each other and where specific groups diverged. Tetrapoda, that is our 4-limbed critters. So the first tetrapod, first vertebrate tetrapod, was Acanthostega, which is this critter here. They evolved from our lobe-finned fishes, like the coelacanth or the lungfish, and crawled out on land. They're our first kind of tetrapod ancestor. Reptiles are a tetrapod, and they share a common ancestor with amphibians, mammals, and birds. Then we have Seymour bailurensis. This is another first tetrapod ancestor, a very primitive reptile with amphibian features, another common ancestor that we see here. So then we have our reptiles, and then we have our lizards and our snakes as they diverge over millions of years. Snakes are thought to have evolved from terrestrial lizards around 100 million years ago. And so scientists do have a small number of specimens that have been dated to try to have a better understanding of when they evolved. So what makes snakes a snake? So all snakes, they have an elongated body and tail. So with that, they have an elongated vertebral column. So that's their backbone, all the vertebrae. They'll have around 100 to 450 vertebrae in the body. It depends on the snake. And that's same with like the tail. So they could have 10 to 205 vertebrae in the tail. Depends on the snake. Also kind of depends on the sex of the snake, because male snakes tend to have longer tails than female snakes. So that could impact the amount of vertebrae that they have as well. And the ribs associated with every vertebra except immediately behind the head or tail. So the arrows on the picture pointing to right behind the neck of our snake here, and then right at the end of the tail, or where the tail begins, excuse me, end of the spine, there at the end. They are limbless. So even though they evolved from a tetrapod, we still consider them a tetrapod, even though now they are limbless because they came from a four-legged animal. They do have teeth. Those teeth are very sharp and they curve downward towards the rear of the mouth. Some snakes will have specialized teeth like fangs to deliver venom. With the teeth, the lower jaw of snakes are very loosely joined. So on us, we have a lower jaw, and our lower jaw is here. I will turn my camera on for this because I do. Again, I talk with my hands. So here we go. Hi. So our lower jaw is fused right here in the center of our mouths. And for snakes, that is not fused in the same way. So when they are eating, they can move one side of their jaw forward at a time. And with their teeth pointed back downward towards their throat, there kind of works like a conveyor belt, which is really cool. So your little tidbit. So they also lack external ear canals. So you will not see a snake with ear canals. A lot of other snakes can have like pit holes for heat sensing and all that stuff, but they don't have ear canals, external ear canals like lizards do. So that's one of the ways that we can tell the difference between a lizard and a snake, especially a legless lizard, it's because they lack those ear canals. They're external ear canals. And they also lack eyelids. So snakes always have their eyes open, even when they're sleeping, because instead they have brille, which is it's a scale that protects the eye, and they shed this off when they shed their skin. So some more snake characteristics for you, but on the inside. Internal organs are elongated to fit the body cavity. So paired organs are offset of each other, and they most have a right lung, but they lack the left lung, or the left lung is really small and it's vestigial. So that means that it's there, but it doesn't really serve a big purpose. So in our image here, you can see the right lung and the left lung just down the snake from the heart. They have a very long forked tongue. A lot of people think that the long forked tongue is dangerous, but it is in fact harmless. And speaking from experience, it tickles when they lick you. And snakes use their tongue to pick up odors to help them smell their environment. So they use the Jacobson's organ, and they'll stick their tongue up against the Jacobson's organ, and it helps them identify like what direction like a mouse is coming from. So if they stick their tongue out and they pick up mouse particles, so they'll stick it against the roof of their mouth, and maybe there's more mouse particles on the left side of their tongue, so they know that they need to turn left to find a mouse. So they use their Jacobson's organ to help them process, and with their tongue to help them process their environment. And that it also uses their tongue and that Jacobson's organ to find mates during breeding season, because they'll emit pheromones and it helps them figure out what's going on. All right, some more snake characteristics. They shed their skin periodically as they grow. The skin does not grow with the snake. That's why they have to shed it. So once they are a little bit too big for their skin, it's starting to get tight, their body naturally will go through the process to start shedding it. Shedding is really good for snakes because it helps them remove harmful bacteria and parasites. Snakes can get mites just like other critters. And so to shed, the snake will release a hormone that loosely loosens the bond between the skin layers. So they'll start at their head and they'll rub their head against a rough object like a rock or a log or something like that. And they will loosen the skin up there, and then they kind of try to get it caught on like a rock or a log if they can. And then they kind of shimmy out of it over time. I like to think of it as if you are taking your sock off and you take it off really, really fast and it turns inside out. That's what snakes do with their sheds. So the shed part that you pick up is the inside part of the shed. So that was what was up against the snake originally. And if you were to stick your finger in the head tube, that would be the outside. Kind of a weird explanation, but that's how they shed their skin. And once the old skin tears, the snake will ripple its muscles, like I said, kind of shimmying to work itself out of its old skin. All right. So where can you find snakes? Snakes live in a very wide variety of habitats, from something kind of dry like a prairie or even drier like a desert if you go out west, to something pretty wet like swamps. Some snakes will occupy different niches, so that's a very specific space in a habitat, and that depends on the species. So some snakes might be arboreal, like this northern rough green snake, living mostly in trees and shrubs. Some snakes live mostly on the ground, like this Decay's brown snake. Some snakes are generalists, and they live in a variety of habitats, like this western rat snake, mostly living in forests, but they also might be found in your backyard. They're a pretty harmless snake, but you might see them around. And then some snakes are generalists. So, or excuse me, are specialists. So this is a mud snake, a western mud snake, and they specifically eat lesser sirens and amphiumas, and they are only found here in Missouri in the boot heel, so down way in the southeast. I will say, just a quick note, I am here at the Discovery Center after hours, and so you may hear some noises going on behind me. If any of that is a problem, please put it in the chat. I'm gonna make sure I have the chat open. There we go. So put it in the chat if there are any noises that are disruptive, and we'll get it figured out. Okay. And then our food. So all snakes are predators, so they eat other animals. They're despite having teeth, they do have to eat their food whole. And their food habits will vary by species, just like their habitats do. So some species eat mainly insects, insect larvae, slugs, worms, spiders, etc., like the rough green snake, that arboreal green snake. Some snakes eat fish, frogs, tadpoles, crayfish, etc. That would be a water snake, maybe like a northern water snake, for example. Some snakes will eat rodents, small birds, eggs, etc., like our western rat snake that we saw just pictured, or like our bull snake. And then some snakes eat other snakes and lizards, and that would be like our speckled king snakes or other king snake species. And they can, especially king snakes, they are actually immune to venom, so they can eat our venomous snakes, which is pretty cool. And they will get their food through a variety of methods. So they could be ambush predators. Those tend to be our like swimming species that are going after fish and frogs because they're slippery. So they need to catch them pretty quickly and eat them as fast as they can. Some are going to be constricting snakes. And that would be like our bull snake pictured here. So they will grab onto their prey, wrap around it really, really fast, and squeeze them really tight. And when they squeeze them, it actually causes a heart attack. And so the rodent ends up dying, making them a lot easier to eat. And then lastly, of course, probably one of our most famous types of snakes as predators is through venom, where they bite their prey, inject venom, they let go, they let their prey run away and then die. And then they follow that scent trail using that Jacobson's organ that we just talked about to find their mouse and eat it, or whatever it happens to be. Okay. So snakes, you either love them or you hate them. I love them. But regardless of how you feel about snakes personally, in general, why should we care about snakes? Well, they play a very critical role in the food web, both as predator and prey. So they help keep a balance in the ecosystem. Since snakes have such a dynamic role within the food web, their presence is an absolute necessity to maintain their respective ecosystems. If you remove snakes from an ecosystem, the ecosystem could collapse. They help keep that balance in the ecosystem by controlling prey populations, by controlling important pests. And this is, again, really important. So if tomorrow you woke up and all the snakes ceased to exist, there would be so many extreme consequences because many animals that are considered pests would soon have population booms that we wouldn't be able to keep in check, which could destroy our homes, honestly, especially if you have like mice in your home, you could have a really big problem with that. Or it could also destroy crops, which of course, not wonderful. I certainly like food. I don't know about you, but we want to make sure that we keep that balance in our ecosystem. They reduce the spread of some zoonotic diseases. It can potentially be more severe since rodents are reservoirs for certain diseases like Lyme disease, and so that could hurt us as well. So with snakes around, they drastically reduce the spread of zoonotic diseases, and they help maintain biodiversity. So we are, biodiversity is the variety of life in the world or in a particular habitat or ecosystem. In the middle of we are in the middle of a biodiversity crisis. So wildlife populations have declined roughly 70% in the last 50 years. And so they help us have better biodiversity by keeping them around. That's why we want to care about snakes. And then lastly, my personal opinion, they are very interesting animals. We'll talk about that a little bit. I wanted to throw up this eastern hognose snake because they're one of my personal favorite snakes, and they like to play dead. So when they get freaked out, they'll play dead, which I don't know about you, is kind of interesting. But snakes, like everything else in our natural world, does have some conservation concerns. So those concerns are habitat loss and destruction. We see that on a very large scale, not necessarily always here in the United States or in the state of Missouri, but in other parts of the world now where you have areas of extreme biodiversity. So a lot of different types of life in an area, and that habitat loss can really hurt them. Also with diseases and pathogens, as our world continues to get bigger in a sense with people traveling from one place to another, diseases and pathogens can be spread across the world a little bit easier, may not hurt us, but may hurt our animals. So for example, snake fungal disease is one of those. Introduced in non-native species. That's kind of a not necessarily a problem here. I previously have worked in Florida. In Florida, there's an issue with Burmese pythons taking over the Everglades. And so that is an introduced species. It's actually considered an invasive species now because it causes harm to the environment. And they compete with our native snake species. So invasive and non-native species can be a really big deal and hurting our populations with snakes as that species, but also if we have plants that are introduced and non-native, they become invasive, like bush honeysuckle, that can change and alter the habitat and make it uninhabitable for certain species. Pesticides. Pesticides kill some of the critters that snakes eat. Pesticides could be consumed by like mice if mice are eating insects and other things. It could be consumed by other critters, and then a snake eats an animal that has eaten a lot of pesticides, and then they could get sick and die from it as well. So avoiding using pesticides is a wonderful way to help our snake species. Commercial exploitation. I personally see it online that we're kind of in this boom of having snakes as pets, which is really great. Snakes are good animals. I really hope people like enjoy them and like to spend time with them. However, if those snakes are removed from the wild rather than being captive bred, that can cause exploitation to happen and can lower the healthy habitat. And then persecution. A lot of people don't necessarily like snakes. They have negative biases towards snake species, and that can lead to harmful actions and can result in like planned persecutions. So people going out and killing snakes. So for example, the snake pictured here is a northern water snake, which is a non-venomous snake, and it is flattening its head. Now, if you saw that and you weren't 100% certain what it might be, what could you think it was? I don't know about you, but when I see a snake, especially here in the state of Missouri, with a triangle shaped head, I immediately think a venomous snake. So this northern water snake is trying to mimic a venomous snake because it doesn't want to be eaten. But as a human, we might get freaked out by that and kill it. So having a better understanding of the snakes that are in your area, who's dangerous, who's not dangerous, can help protect the snake and help with our conservation concerns. So how to help snakes, kind of hinted at it a little bit, but preserving and conserving existing habitats. So if we have natural land that everyone can enjoy, keeping that healthy and thriving for our snakes, wonderful thing. You could establish new habitats. If you are willing and you have a little bit of land, even if it's just a small plot in your backyard, you could help like a little Decay's brown snake, non-venomous, eats slugs, earthworms, great to have around, especially if you have a little garden. They won't hurt you. So you could establish a new habitat and help the snakes out and help that balanced ecosystem. You could plant native vegetation. That kind of goes hand in hand with establishing a new habitat. Our native vegetation is really important to supporting a lot of different animals. So you wouldn't just be helping snakes, you'd be helping a lot of things out as well. Eradicate invasive species. Kind of already touched on why invasive species are a problem. Invasive plants specifically to restore our ecosystems kind of back to what they naturally were. Reduce the spread of disease. So to reduce the spread of disease, if you are going out and what we lovingly call herping, because snakes kind of fall into this herpology kind of thought process, which is amphibians and reptiles. So if you go out herping, it's the reptile version of birding, making sure that you're disinfecting what you're using, keeping things clean to reduce the spread of disease from snake to snake. Climate change is another big one. As our temperatures begin to rise, reptiles are facing significant challenges in adapting to the changing environment. Again, they're cold-blooded, so there are components to that can impact them that we don't necessarily see that. So species that are adapted to specific temperatures are struggling to survive in those new temperatures. And this can lead to decline in population numbers as animals are unable to cope with new conditions. It's not just a snake problem, it's a lot of different animals, but that is a component. So being mindful of how you can help lower your impact can help in the long run with how to help snakes. Leave wild animals wild. We kind of talked about the exploitation of snakes, and so not removing any snakes from the wild is a great way to help snakes. And that also goes for maybe some of their food sources too. Keep cats inside. This is always kind of a tricky one to mention because people love cats, and I totally understand. But cats kill 258 to 822 million reptiles a year. We don't have an exact number because it's obviously something that's really hard to quantify. But they don't just impact like snakes, they impact other reptiles, they impact other vertebrates like birds and mammals as well. So if you can keep your cats inside, that's a wonderful way to help out with snakes. There's this thought process that I really like to follow, which is the just one idea. And so if you're thinking to yourself, well, it's just one cat or it's just one snake that I'm taking out, how many other people have had that same idea? And so when you think about it in that scope, there could be hundreds of thousands of people who are like, well, it's just one snake, I can take it out. Or it's just one cat, I can leave it outside. And the last one is what you're doing right now, education. Learning a little bit more about these animals is a wonderful way to help snakes because you won't go out and kill the first snake that you see, because you can respect them and see them for their beauty and nature. So education is a wonderful way. And then you're here today. If you learn one cool thing and you go and share that with somebody else, that could give them this idea of maybe snakes aren't that bad. Not everyone will listen though. I've been trying for years with my mom with that. She does not like snakes. Okay, so you want to explore more. How do you go out and herp safely? Know the laws. This is really important. State land versus federal land. No trespassing, please. Most snakes have laws and regulations about like possessing reptiles and amphibians. So knowing those is really important as well. Knowing if you need to have a collecting permit, all that kind of stuff. So know the law of where you're at. Know what species are threatened or endangered. Because again, you don't want to be caught with like a threatened or endangered animal because you get in really big trouble. Also with that, do not pursue those species. Don't go out looking for a northern scarlet snake. They're extremely rare. Their populations are not doing too hot. So don't pursue those species. If you are out herping and you happen to see one, that is so cool. I am so happy for you. But don't go out and like pursue them because we don't want to stress out a herding population even more. Don't disturb them when they're in their habitat as well. You just want to, you can be like, oh, that's so cool, but don't try picking them up. Just leave them alone and let them do their little snaky business. Return animals, making sure that if you do end up picking a non-threatened or endangered species up, return it back to exactly where you found it. Do not disclose locations. This is a really big deal for those threatened and endangered species. If you see a really cool snake species, like a northern scarlet snake, don't tell everyone that you see, because one of those people may tell somebody else who may go out and exploit that animal, take it into captivity and try to sell it. So we try not to disclose locations to keep the populations and the habitats of these, threatened and endangered species safe. Disinfect, again, we talked about diseases, so we want to make sure that we are keeping everything clean when we are going through a lot of other areas and habitats. Protect the habitat. So return cover objects to their original positions. A lot of people like to flip logs and rocks and stuff when they go out herping. That's totally okay. Just make sure that you are putting things back how you found it. Don't tear apart logs or strip bark from trees, and then tread lightly in sensitive habitats. So stay on boardwalks or trails where possible. In some certain types of habitats, you can really disturb them by just walking willy-nilly wherever you want. And then also while you're out, be mindful. You may come up across like a research site, so don't mess with any traps or cover tins or anything that you see if you're in a research site, so you don't screw up someone's research, because that's no fun. Protect yourself and others. Be sure if you're going out and herping, you know the venomous snakes that might be in that area so that you can be on top of it and watching for them. Wash your hands after handling amphibians. So again, if you're going out herping, you may also go looking for amphibians. So wash your hands after handling amphibians. Wash your hands before handling amphibians and rinse them really, really well with tap water. So their skin can have toxins that can cause irritation to like sensitive skin around your eyes and your nose. But also we don't want to give them anything like bug spray or sunscreen. So a lot of times I actually recommend wearing like plastic gloves if you're going to pick up an amphibian so you don't hurt them. This one is most important when you are flipping rocks and logs. Flip them towards you. So you want to grip the furthest point away of that rock or log, mixing up words, of that rock or log. I had 2 programs this morning, so my brain is moving faster than my mouth right now. But you're gonna lift that rock towards you, and then you can peer around the rock to see what you find. If you lift a rock away from you and there's a venomous snake under it, they could strike and hurt you really easily. So that puts a barrier between you and any potential hazardous situation. All right. And the last thing is be a liaison. So again, with that education, if you're out herping and someone asks you, what are you doing? Tell them how cool and fun it is and how you can be safe. Be open with like landowners or if you like see a conservation agent or something, be open with what you're doing. They might find it really cool and interesting. Tell them what you found, because a lot of people are really excited to hear about your search and all that stuff. Treat both the animals and the public with respect, so that way they have a good, interpretation of what's going on. And then if you can, and you see really cool stuff and there's a project going on that you're aware of, share that data with researchers and other agencies. Sometimes the Department of Conservation likes to know if you see like some specific animals. Sometimes we don't, depends on who it is, but you could share your data, and that way people are aware, like, hey, we have a healthy population of northern scarlet snakes in whatever area that you happen to have been in. Okay, moving forward, a little bit about snakes in the world. Still in that order Squamata, still in that suborder Serpentines, 25 families. So again, going down the list of getting more specific, we have 25 families and about 3,700 species. The largest snake species, if anyone can guess from this big boy right here, is a green anaconda. Green anacondas are our thickest snake, so the most rotund, if you will, not necessarily our longest, and also likely our heaviest snake. However, the reticulated python is our longest snake. So our green anaconda is about 28 feet long, typically, and about 500 pounds. And they're found in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, Venezuela, and Colombia. The reticulated python the record is 32.8 feet, and they are not as girthy as our anaconda, and they're from South and Southeast Asia. Our smallest snake species then is the Barbados thread snake, and they are just about 4 inches in length, and they weigh 0.6 grams, which is about 30 grains of rice. So if you want to go find 30 grains of rice in your home right now, that is how much a thread snake weighs. But moving on to Missouri, we have, again, that order Squamata, suborder. We only have 2 families. So 25 families in the world. Here in Missouri, we only have 2. 43 species and then 4 additional subspecies. So subspecies is just kind of classifying a species based off of the habitat that it lives in. Sometimes there's genetic differences. Sometimes there's not as much. Most of the time it's like location, habitat that they're living. And then we have Colubridae. Those are non-venomous snakes, and we have 37 species and 4 subspecies. Our other family is Viperidae. Those are our venomous snakes, and we have 6-ish species here in Missouri. Colubridae are non-venomous snakes. Again, 37 species, 4 subspecies. We have 3 subfamilies in Missouri. Colubrinae, this is when all the language gets fun. They are harmless and are egg-laying snakes. Then we have Dipseidae. Those are rear-fanged or swivel jaw snakes. These guys are mildly venomous. So they're not dangerous like our venomous snakes, but they are mildly venomous. And so their fangs are in the top back roof of their mouth, and they chew their venom into whatever they're eating, mainly to slow it down. So we'll get into this a little bit later, but a hognose snake is a rear fang snake. They eat a lot of toads. Toads are really squirmy, so as they're trying to eat it, they will massage their venom into the toad, which really just kind of makes it mellow out, so they're easier to eat. Most of our rear fang snakes are harmless to humans. And then we have Natrinaceae. Those are harmless, live-bearing snakes. So like I said earlier, some snakes do not lay eggs on land. This is one of those. All right. Then we have Viperidae. Those are our venomous snakes. There are 6 species here in Missouri, 1 subfamily. Cordylininae are pit vipers. They have a very stout body. They're a thick snake, a very broad arrow-shaped head, and they have a pair of hollow fangs located at the front of their upper jaw, and they have heat-sensitive pit locating between the nostril and the eye. So hopefully I'll have a better picture here in a second if I remember right. Yeah, there you can see the facial pit on the right picture of our venomous snake. These are just some tidbits of our non-venomous versus our venomous. So again, venomous snakes tend to have that triangle-shaped head Again, though, some of our non-venomous snakes will flatten their head to look like a venomous snake. This is also, I should note, specific to here in the state of Missouri and other parts of the United States and the world. This is not a like telltale 100% deal. So our non-venomous snakes, they will have a rounded pupil, just like us. They do not have any fangs. And then if you were to happen to find a shed, the underside of the tail, if you can find the cloaca, that is what I lovingly call the everything hole, because it is the reproductive, urinary, and I'm losing my words, anal tracts. So that's where they have all their fun stuff going on. Is the cloaca or the vent. There's a couple different terms for it. But going from the vent towards the end of the tail, you'll have 2 rows of scales instead of a single row of scales, which you would see in our venomous snakes. Venomous snakes also have an elliptical eye, an elliptical pupil, like a cat. And I always say, I never want to be close enough to a venomous snake, to any snake that I don't know what it is, to see the eye. But if you have a pair of binoculars, it's one of the things that you can look out for, especially if it's a non-venomous snake flattening its head. You also hopefully would not, but could see fangs if they were to open their mouth. And our non-venomous snake, instead of a triangular head, will have more of a U-shaped rounded head. All right, snakes of Missouri. I'm going to kind of breeze through this a little bit quickly so I don't go over time. I wanted to pull out some of our more common species and then in those 3 subfamilies for our colubrids. So to show off first, this is a eastern yellow-bellied racer. They are found nearly statewide. They can vary in color, so this one's pretty gray. They do, in fact, have a yellow belly. I love when names are so easy. They're often found in a wide variety of habitats. They overwinter beneath rocks and rock crevices, within rotting logs or stumps, or in animal burrows. So snakes and other reptiles go through something called brumation. It's not hibernation because they aren't like going to sleep, but because their body temperature gets so low, everything does slow down, and we call it brumation instead of hibernation. So overwintering is brumation. They can consume a variety of animals, but especially small mammals like lizards, snakes, frogs, birds, and insects. Speckled king snake, you're going to hear me say this a lot because I can't pick, but this is one of my favorite snakes. They are presumed to be statewide. We aren't 100% certain. And they are shiny black with a lot of small yellow dots. One of the reasons why they're my favorite snake is because each individual scale will have a yellow dot in it, which is so cool. They have very smooth scales as well. This is like one of the smoothest feeling snakes that I have ever held. They're often found in a variety of habitats. They will also overwinter beneath rocks and rotting logs and stumps or in other animal burrows. And they consume a variety of animals like mice, bird eggs, small birds, lizards, and snakes, but they are immune to snake venom. So they eat venomous snakes, which I also think is really cool. It's been a couple years ago now, but the department posted on Facebook a king snake eating a copperhead. The copperhead was like quite a bit bigger than the king snake. So one of my favorite snakes. Then we have the eastern milk snake, which are a sassy little snake. We work with eastern milk snakes quite a bit. We have one here at the Discovery Center. Sassy little fella. They're presumed to be statewide. They have white or pale yellow shades with red blotches. The red blotches are bordered with black, and that goes down their back. They're often, again, found in a variety of habitats, but these guys are pretty elusive and secretive. So they are more in rocky areas like glades, which is kind of a rocky, dry prairie on like a south-facing hillside. But they also could be along forest edges or along down trees. Also overwinter in animal burrows, crevices on rocky hillsides, and even foundations of old buildings. And they consume a variety of animals like lizards, snakes, reptile eggs, mice, and shrews. They will also eat, they are a type of king snake, so they are also immune to venom. They're just a pretty tiny snake, so they're not going to be going after copperheads unless it's like a baby. And these guys are constrictors. And I just wanted to throw this in here. They are a mimic, sort of. You may or may not be familiar with the coral snake. Coral snakes are not in Missouri. They are not native to Missouri. They are native to the southeastern United States, like Georgia and Florida and all that fun stuff down there. But our milk snakes kind of, and same with that scarlet snake, they kind of mimic coral snakes with their banding. And so you may have heard of the term or the phrase, red touches black, friend to Jack, red touches yellow, kill a fellow. That's talking about coral snakes and then milk snakes and scarlet snakes. So as you can see in the coral snake, the red thick band touches the yellow, that's killing a fellow. And the black bands are not touching red, whereas on our milk snake, the black is touching the red. And this is an adult. Milk snakes like heavily vary in color. So as you get further south, even here in the state of Missouri, they will be a lot more of like vivid, brighter colors because they're trying to mimic that coral snake a little bit more. Color also can vary on like the habitat and substrate that they live on. So if they live in a very like sandy colored habitat, they're going to be more sandy colored versus like a deeper, rich soil like in a prairie. All right, northern rough green snake. They are found throughout the southern 2/3 of the state. Also kind of sassy little guys. I really love them too. They are plain green with a light yellow or cream colored belly. And they're often found in dense trees and bushes. They will overwinter deep in leaf litter and inside rotten logs and stumps. I did a program one time where somebody showed me a picture of rough green snakes that were laid under leaf litter. So they're not always the best about laying their eggs, but these guys are also often found hanging around on the edges of streams. So if you like to go canoeing or kayaking, you gotta be on the lookout. They're really hard to see, but you could find one on a stream edge as well. And they consume primarily insects and spiders. Small snake, small food. Western rat snake. These guys are presumed to be statewide. The adults are very shiny and black. Some have small patches of red on their skin as well. The babies often are confused for copperheads. So they will have a pattern. It is a very like general rat snake pattern. They look like saddles, like a horse saddle, but they are often mistaken for copperheads. So unfortunately, they're often persecuted for that. Very oftenly found in a variety of habitats like all of our other snakes. So they could be, again, like I said, in forest dwelling areas, but then they could be in your backyard. So really easy snake to find. They're pretty common. If you have a farm or farm buildings, this might be the one hanging out in your barn eating your chicken eggs. So they're definitely around. Overwinter in animal burrows, rock outcrops, caves, rotten tree stumps, hollow trees. The snakes kind of have a theme going here. And they consume a variety of animals like small mammals, bats, birds, bird eggs, lots of different things. These guys are also constrictors. So most of the snakes that we've been talking about so far are all constrictors, constricting their food rather than that ambush predator style or having venom. And then our bull snake. So bull snakes are a species of conservation concern. So what that means is that the Department of Conservation is concerned about their population numbers here in the state of Missouri. And so it is the Department of Conservation's version of an endangered species. So they're not endangered statewide, or excuse me, they're not endangered federally, but they are considered endangered by the Department of Conservation. So they're a species of conservation concern. They are statewide except that very southeastern corner, and they are thought to be Missouri's largest native snake. It's kind of a competition between the bull snake and the western rat snake, because western rat snakes can also get really big, but bull snakes, I heard a story from our state herpetologist that he found a bull snake that was 8 feet long. So I've seen western rat snakes 6 feet long. I haven't seen a bull snake that big, but they definitely kind of compete with each other for the largest. They can be tan or yellow with black blotches. These are a type of like gopher snakes. You might also hear them called that, especially if you spend time out in Kansas. They kind of call them gopher snakes. Often found in a variety of grasslands. That's why they're a species of conservation concern. We don't have a lot of native prairie land here in the state of Missouri anymore, and that's where you would find them. So they will overwinter in animal burrows, beneath rock piles, and in rock crevices, and they consume primarily small mammals, birds, and bird eggs. And then on a smaller side, our flat-headed snake. They're in the southern half of Missouri, except the southeastern lowlands and the boot heel. They're gray, tan, light brown, sometimes a reddish brown. This again will depend on the substrate color, so what color the soil is. Found in a variety of habitats, often in slightly moist soil under rocks or in underground burrows, and they prefer rocky hillsides, especially in glades. They overwinter in animal burrows and rock piles and rock crevices, but they consume scorpions, spiders, centipedes, and a lot of different types of insects. Moving on to our prairie ringneck snakes. This is when we get into our mildly venomous rear-fanged species. So I often hear a lot of people be like, are ringneck snakes dangerous? No, they're not. They are really tiny. They do not have enough venom to where they could hurt somebody. And again, they have to chew their venom into their prey. And this is a really tiny snake who cannot fit their mouth or anywhere near to around anything on you to chew it in. Ringneck snakes are gorgeous snake. Obviously, they have that ring around their neck, and then their bellies tend to be very brightly colored. Still statewide, except in that southeast corner. They tend to be dark in color with that yellow or orange ring around the neck. They're often found in a variety of habitats again, but specifically like prairies, pastures, open woods, along the edges of woodlands, and on dry, rocky glades. They can be secretive, so you might have to flip rocks or logs to be able to find them. They overwinter in animal burrows beneath rock piles and bedrock crevices, and they consume primarily earthworms, but also slugs, insect larvae, small salamanders, and frogs. Eastern hognose snake, again, another one of those rear-fanged snakes, presumed to be statewide. So they will, in this picture, it's demonstrating that they will flatten their necks out when they feel threatened, and they can be like highly variable in color, lots of different colors in our hognose snakes. Again, in a variety of habitats, like open fields, sandy or loose soil habitats, open river floodplains, rocky wooded hillsides, lots of different places, overwintering in animal burrows or old logs and stumps. And they consume, like I mentioned earlier, primarily toads and frogs. They have elaborate defense mechanisms. So they'll flatten their necks out like that. And then they also will play dead. And sometimes they will regurgitate whatever their last meal was, or they will musk, which is most similar to like pooping, and it's so stinky, and so it deters any predators theoretically. And then a northern water snake. This is getting into our live bearing snakes. So there are some reptiles that have live young. This is one of those. The eggs develop inside the female snake. It's kind of that same thing, internally fertilized eggs. They just happen to develop inside the live snake. The egg structure is different compared to like a mammal. So that is why a live bearing snake is not considered a mammal. This can get really complicated. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the fertilized eggs develop inside of the female, and then she will give birth to live young. It depends on the snake of how many young that could be. They're in the northern 2/3 of the snake. Super common snake, can be relatively tiny to, decent size, like 4 feet, depending on the snake. Gray to brown with dark brown bands, often found in a variety of aquatic habitats, and they overwinter in rock dams, on levees, bank burrows, and crayfish burrows, which is pretty cool, and old logs. And they consume a variety of small fish, but will also eat frogs and salamander larvae because they're in the water. DeKay's brown snake, one of my favorites, also a live young bearing snake. They are presumed to be statewide, gray or brown in color with a dorsal stripe bordered by brown spots. So this is kind of a tannish one. You can see the brown spots on its back. I always think of it kind of looking like a checkerboard because it kind of follows that pattern. Often found in moist forests, and they overwinter beneath large rocks, rock piles, rock crevices, logs, and stumps. They consume primarily earthworms, slugs, snails, and soft-bodied insects, things you find on the forest floor. And then our last non-venomous snake that we're going to talk about today is the eastern garter snake. You may see these in your garden. We see them here at the Discovery Center quite often. Another live-bearing species, having live young. Southeastern 2/3 of the state typically, but they are black or brown with light stripes, and some of them can have more of a red stripe to them too. There's a couple different species of garter snakes here in Missouri. I just picked this one because it is one of the more common ones. Often found in a variety of habitats. Again, they tend to kind of like areas that are a little damper, near water, like ponds, marshes, swamps, damp woods, all that kind of stuff. Overwinter in animal burrows or rotting stumps or rock crevices again, and they consume primarily earthworms, frogs, tadpoles, toads, and salamanders. Again, living near the water, tadpoles and salamanders, frogs, all found there. All right, moving on to our vipers. Eastern copperhead is by far the most common venomous snake here in Missouri. They are found statewide except the extreme north border of the state with Iowa. Very stout body. They are a chunky snake, and gray, copper, tan with pinkish color, and they have an hourglass. So this is the thing that we look for to distinguish our venomous, specifically copperheads, from our non-venomous, like western rat snake young. You look for a Hershey's kiss or an hourglass shape, and it helps us figure out that that's who it is. I'm going to kind of speed through this so we can get to questions. So often found in a variety of habitats. Again, these tend to also could be found in more urban areas, depending on where you're at. Overwintering in animal burrows and other places. So they consume primarily mice and voles, but will also eat frogs, lizards, small birds, insects, even snakes. Northern cottonmouths are found in the southern third of the state, or kind of almost half there, mainly in the southeastern corner and throughout the Ozarks. They are a very heavy-bodied, dark snake. The young are going to look more similar to copperhead. Our cottonmouths and our copperhead are very closely related. I think of them as like cousins. So they use two distinct habitats. So they tend to be in those watery areas, but they also can be found in oxbow lakes, drainage ditches, Mississippi lowlands. So in southeastern Missouri, that's where you're going to find them. If you're in the Ozarks, they will be in like cool, spring-fed, rocky creeks, small rivers. Not too cool of water though, because they're cold-blooded. Overwintering in rock crevices and along limestone bluffs, and they can consume a variety of prey. Lots of things that live in the water, so fish, frogs, those tadpoles and stuff like that. But they also are going to eat small mammals and rodents and birds. They are named for their white mouth, which they display when they are threatened, as you can see in this photo. Timber rattlesnake. Another one of those, like, probably it is found they're presumed to be statewide, so like they're definitely not common, but here in the Kansas City area, if you were to go out into more of a wilderness area, if you were to see a venomous snake, it's either going to be a copperhead or a timber rattlesnake. That being said, they're not like super abundant and common that you're going to see one every time you go out. It's just being diligent while you're out. Heavy bodied, again, very yellow, tan, brown. They tend to have a dorsal stripe, as you can see in that picture. So right along their spine, it's a little bit darker in color. They prefer a habitat with mature forests and heavily wooded and rocky hillsides. And they like to do what this snake is doing in this picture and hang out on the side of rocks or logs. So one of the things that we talk about with going out and herping is that you never, ever, ever step over a log. You step on the log, look, and then you can step off the log. So that way you're not stepping into potentially an area where a timber rattlesnake is hiding and you could get bit. Often found coiled under a secure site, like I just said. And they overwinter in dens with other snakes. So these guys are kind of communal, which is fun. You could find other species of snakes overwintering in a timber rattlesnake hibernaculum, I think is what we call it. And they consume a variety of small mammals primarily. Western pygmy rattlesnakes, they're in the extreme southern Missouri, extreme Missouri, or eastern Missouri Ozarks. Very small snake. These are live bearing, if I remember right. And so this is a mom with her little live bearing bird babies. Brown gray with small dark brown or black blotches. They prefer glades. So these guys tend to be pretty elusive, not super common. They're really small. So again, you would find them hiding under rocks and things like that. Overwinter in animal burrows, logs, large rocks, and they consume a variety of lizards, small snakes, mice, etc. Prairie Massasauga. This is where we get into our 6-ish venomous snaky species. Prairie Massasauga is here in our eastern Missouri region. This is a species that you can find in Les Bluffs, the Fish and Wildlife Service area that's in Mound City, if I remember correctly. So isolated populations across the state. They are federally endangered. They are also a species of conservation concern, and they prefer marshes and moist prairies, overwintering and crayfish or other animal burrows, and eat a variety of small mammals. And then eastern Massasauga. This is the one that is considered extirpated. So it's thought to not be here in the state of Missouri anymore. Species of conservation concern for that reason. Again, prefer marshes and moist prairies, often found basking in the summer, trying to warm up, overwinters in those crayfish burrows, and it consumes a variety of small mammals. So, sorry to run through that quickly, but some additional resources for you. The Department of Conservation has this free guide to Missouri snakes. That'll be included in that follow-up email. It's a link to PDF. However, if you want a physical copy, just stop by any regional office or nature center. They do have them available for you to pick up, or check the field guide, mdc.mo.gov. Look at the field guide. You can see a lot of different native critters there. If you want to purchase something, the department does put out the Amphibians and Reptiles of Missouri book. This was written by our state herpetologist. It's a really great book. So much information. You could learn so much. A lot of the information that we talked about today is actually from this book. There's more information there than I think you could ever know what to do with. A smaller book is the Peterson's Field Guide to Reptiles and Amphibians, or the National Audubon Society's Field Guide. There are questions in the chat, so type away if you have more.
Okay. We've got a lot of questions and comments, and for time's sake, I think I will just skip over the comments and go directly to questions. Our first one is, what is a snake's color vision like, and does it vary between species?
So I saw that question come through, and I actually don't know the answer to that. I would have to look that one up. I would assume that it varies between species, and their vision is not fantastic because of that scale that covers their eye. So I don't know for certain. That's a really good question.
We also had, what is the most dangerous snake in Missouri, and what eats snakes?
So the most dangerous snake in Missouri is kind of a complicated question. A lot of people think any small venomous snake is more dangerous than an adult. I just want to clear that up, that is not the case. If you think about how big a baby snake is compared to an adult. Baby snake has smaller venom glands in it. So although, yes, they are more likely to bite and inject their venom, there is less venom there to affect your system. But arguably, again, with snakes, venomous snakes is kind of complicated. Cottonmouths tend to be one of the more venomous ones. They just inject a lot of venom. They're more willing to inject venom. But not every venomous snake will inject all of the venom that they have produced. Venom is a very energy taxing thing for a snake to make, and so they don't always want to expend it all on something they know they can't eat, like us. I do have a snake with me, so I'm going to pull him out while we keep asking questions.
Okay. Why do some people like to kill snakes for fun?
That is a great question that I unfortunately do not know the answer to, because some people just really
Yeah.
don't like snake. This is a bull snake, so he's just going to say hi to us while we're answering questions. He's a really friendly guy.
Okay. Oh, cool. Let's see. Should you wear special equipment or clothes when herping?
Yeah, and I think I saw someone maybe start to answer that. So there are some things that you can wear. One of the best things that you can wear are actually like muck boots or a high rubber boot. That way, if you are stepping over something and there happens to be like a rattlesnake there, they can't like penetrate the boot. So a rubber boot is great. And then gloves. I recommend wearing leather gloves, but that's really the best things to wear. Anything that'll keep you cool, keep the ticks away, things like that.
Okay. Where did the milk snake name come from?
I saw this come in and I was so excited. It's a folklore story, actually. So back in the day, people thought that milk snakes were sucking the tea of a cow. So they were milking the cow, which is not the case. Milk snakes do not drink milk because they're a reptile. Mammals are the only animals that drink milk. They just happen to be found in barns. And so the farmers just assumed that they were stealing milk.
Okay. Does the milk snake only mimic the coral snake by color, or does it act like them too?
For the milk snake's case, I'm pretty sure that it's only by color. They don't Coral snakes are a little bit different for a venomous snake species since they are not in our viper family. They just act a little bit different and kind of act more like a non-venomous snake in general. So definitely more of the color than anything else.
Okay. How can one easily distinguish a coral snake from a non-venomous mimic?
So that little saying, I always have to think extra hard about. Red touches black, friend to Jack. Red touches yellow, kill a fellow. If you can lock that in your brain, it'll help you out. But again, here in the state of Missouri, we do not have coral snakes. Just like to point it out because people do think we have coral snakes here. We do not. Coral snakes are a southeastern United States species.
If the flathead is so tiny, how does it eat a scorpion? And I cannot remember what snake you were talking about when this comment came through.
I'll run back. So the flathead there are baby scorpions. Scorpions can be small. So here in Missouri, we have a bark scorpion, and so they could eat a young bark scorpion for sure. They're hanging out under logs. That's where scorpions here in Missouri will hang out. So there we go. That little guy.
Yeah. Okay. Does Missouri have other snakes besides the water snake that give live birth?
Yeah. So that entire Natrinaceae subfamily gives live birth. There's a handful of species in there that we didn't talk about today.
Do all snakes swim?
I think all snakes are capable of swimming. It's just whether or not they like it or not.
Okay. Kind of like a cat, huh?
Yes.
Okay. And here, are there instances of pet boas and other non-native snakes being released into the wild? It seems like they would find it difficult, if not impossible, to survive.
I'm sure that there are cases that I'm unaware of people releasing snakes into the wild. Sometimes people don't know what to do with a pet snake that they no longer want to, and that's the route that they go in. If you can like avoid that, by all means, please do. Find any alternative route to rehome your snake than just releasing it to the wild. It's stressful for your pet snake. It's stressful to the environment. That's what happened with Burmese pythons, kind of, in Florida. That was kind of a unique story where a hurricane destroyed a zoo that had about a bunch of Burmese pythons. But there's also thoughts that people have been releasing their pets into the Everglades, and that's a habitat that they can survive in, and they're thriving, unfortunately.
Okay. What is the most aggressive snake? And why don't we limit that to most aggressive Missouri snakes?
Um, I really don't know the answer to that. Any snake is going to be upset if you mess with it. So,
Okay.
like the bull snake here, the only snake that I have ever been bitten by was actually not this bull snake. It was a water snake because, like I said, water snakes can be sassy. And so, any snake that just doesn't want to be messed with is going to be our kind of like what was it, dangerous or aggressive? Most aggressive is
Aggressive.
anything that doesn't want to be messed with.
Okay. Now this is an interesting question. Are snakes social? Do they have partners or communities?
So snakes are definitely not social in the way that we might think of them being. When they are out, especially in the summer, they are primarily solitary. They are only seeking each other out to mate, and that's pretty much it. Now, like I mentioned with the rattlesnakes, when it comes to brumation and they're overwintering, they may have a rock crevice that can house several different snakes, and they're all going to hang out there. And it could be just rattlesnakes, but it also could be other species as well.
Okay. Let's see. Do you recommend a snake as a classroom pet?
If you can purchase a snake that you can guarantee that was in captivity, now here in Missouri, or that was bred and raised in captivity. Here in Missouri, it is illegal to purchase any native animal. So if you are looking to have a pet snake in your classroom, just see if it is native to Missouri or not, because we do regulate that. You cannot purchase any native animal here in Missouri. But by all means, yeah, snakes are really cool. Kids love snakes for the most part. It depends on the kid. But I have only a handful of kids who have not loved touching a snake. And it's a really great learning opportunity. Like we talked about today, there's a lot of really interesting things about snakes. And I fell in love with snakes because I had a high school teacher who had a snake and like let me feed it. So
Okay. If someone is bitten by a cottonmouth, do they need immediate medical attention?
if you are bitten by any venomous snake, seek medical attention by all means. The best thing to do is if you are bitten by a venomous snake is to call the hospital that you are en route to tell them that you are en route with a venomous snake bite. That is yes, seek medical attention. There's a couple of things that you can like think about, but like don't try to suck the venom out. Don't wrap a tourniquet around above the site or anything like that. Just go to the hospital.
Okay. How is antivenom produced from procured venom?
So I'm not an expert in this. I do know a little bit about it. So there are businesses that will home and house venomous snakes, and they have methods of extracting that venom. Typically, it's by getting them to bite a cup. And then this is where like I get a little fuzzy because medicine is not really my thing. But I believe that they use the venom and they combine it with some either horse proteins or something, or sheep proteins, and it helps create the anti-venom in that regard. Again, not an expert, but if you're allergic to sheep or horses, you need to tell the hospital when you're en route because most of them are made with sheep or horses.
I think we might have lost our connection with Rachel. I'm so sorry. I really hope that you enjoyed this program as much as I did. I do want you to, if you could take a moment to fill out the survey. I'll put that in the chat again. And please keep an eye out for our programs that I mentioned at the beginning. And no other questions, although we've lost our connection with Rachel. So thank you all for joining us. Good night, everyone.